So we should be good to go, my friends. So this is Brenda Kress. She's going to be speaking today. And through her company, Just Imagine, Brenda Kress provides nonprofit management and mindful leadership training, as well as mentoring and personal intuition sessions. Combining her years of experience working with volunteers, leaders, and her contemplative dialogue training, Brenda supports people in their personal and professional growth. Please help me welcome the beautiful Brenda Kress.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie, for having me. First, I want to start off that the title I came up with, Imagineering a New World Using Self-Compassion. I want to talk about self-compassion first. I made a presentation to the Solano group in January before the whole world changed on self-compassion. And the example I'm going to use is talking today. So last night I was telling my husband, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I can't believe I let this sneak up on me. What am I going to do? And I started beating myself up about it, going, oh my God, why didn't you use more self-discipline and write out something that you could share, and on and on and on. And that's where self-compassion comes in, because I had to stop and take a breath and realize, like most people, I've had a crammed period of time. I'm that generation where I have grandkids. I'm married for 40 years, and anybody who's married to a man for a long time knows that's a whole issue of its own, right? And then I have adult children who are going through things, and then I am a main caregiver for my mom. So this whole week has been either about my son owns Hughes 6 out in Clarksburg, so helping him reopen to outside dining, and then my children with the grandchildren were moving after 8 years and helping them, and then my mom had some health issues. So self-compassion was last night thinking, I can't be a superwoman. I am a superwoman, but I can't be it all the time. And so my husband once in a while comes up with these real gems, because he's like, they're just like your friends. Just sit and chat with your girlfriends. And I have no problem doing that. If you know me, I have no problem doing that. So we're just going to kind of chat. If you'll notice, I kind of look up and down. I'm using 2 screens, only because I didn't write something up. I had to put a few notes on the screen so you don't get me rambling like I might with a girlfriend, because I want you to have some takeaways. But the self-compassion is realizing, being kind to myself. If any one of you had come to me and said, Brenda, I'm supposed to present for you today, and my life went crazy this last week, I'd probably say, that's okay, honey. I'm here. We can work this out, right? Why can't I do that for myself? Why do I have to immediately go to either shaming or being disappointed in myself? So that's why self-compassion is a critical piece. Compassion is great. But my personal belief, and Stephanie's heard this from me, my personal belief is we can't give compassion out into the world until we first practice it with ourselves. And so COVID-19 for me has given me a lot of practice with this, So before I get into a little bit about how I got here, I did want to talk about my hair, because this is a really big thing for me, and with imagination. So I've always wanted to be brave. I've always wanted to do something really radical. Yet I got married at 19, had my first child at 21, the second at 23, and radical kind of goes out the window sometimes, when you're raising a family. And I was a stay-at-home mom and all that. So fast forward to now, and I've always imagined, like I said, doing something bold, but never having done it. And so we were out at my son's place in Clarksburg, and there were a couple talking about St. Baldrick's. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's where you shave your head to raise money and awareness for childhood cancer. And I hadn't been drinking. I promise you, I hadn't been drinking. And I said, I want to do it. My husband looks at me like, what the heck? I'm like, yeah, no, I want to do it. And it was something deep inside of me that knew. Now, some people might say, yeah, that's not a big, bold thing. It is for me, because I work with a lot of groups, and, going around bald, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been bald since a baby. What's it look like, right? It's like, what does the head look like? So my youngest son, who is 34, he said, I'll do it with you too, Mom. So I was on a team. He didn't want his mommy to be up there alone. It was really cute. And so we get up on a stage, and I really thought they just kind of clip a little, No, they take it and go, boom. There is no backing out. It was like a landing strip all the way down. So part of my thinking was, okay, it's not going to be a big deal, Brenda. You can hide from people for a couple months. You don't have to go out and do a lot of meetings, right? And Power Hour's not till June, and you'll have it styled and all this. Well, about 4 days after we did it, COVID-19 hit, and everything went to Zoom hell. All of a sudden, I've got 5 or 10 meetings a day on Zoom. And so I thought, okay, you did this to be bold, then you have to be there bold. And actually, I have to say, everybody told me I had a pretty head. They're like, you look like a little Buddhist monk. And my head's really round. So it's like, oh, thank God there weren't all these, like my husband, not a pretty head at all. Not a pretty head. So anyways, the only thing now that's happening is with the salons not being open, I'm getting these like cowlicks and stuff. So I'm trying to work with it. So anyways, this is my anthem. This is my bold move. And I wanted to share that story because it never would have happened if I didn't imagine taking a bold act and bringing that into myself. I didn't outline it. I never would have imagined bold being my bold act, right? But through the years, I imagined when my children are grown or I get a chance, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to be bold and brave. And I didn't know what it was. And this was it. And that's why I had that inner knowing when they were talking about this. And I said, I want to do it. I didn't even think about it. So self-compassion, I'm going to go with the flow today. Imagination, you don't have to shave your head. There's other things we can do. So anyways, what I wanted to share with you a little bit of my journey too. So when I was young, and some of you might be able to relate with this, I lived in my head. I pictured worlds. I had fairy friends. I believed in the borrowers that lived under the floor. I had imaginary conversations. Even in, I think it was 4th grade, I needed to raise some money. So I used to write stories for my friends for a quarter, and I would pick I'd create a planet for them based on what they liked. And I'd write a story, right? And that was all fun. And I thought, oh, I can grow up and be a writer and a world traveler. And I had these imaginations, and I had a very pragmatic family. And so what I always heard is, oh, Brenda, you and your imagination. Now it wasn't said, oh, Brenda, what a great imagination. It was like, oh, here she goes again. And so somewhere inside of me thought, oh, this isn't a good thing. Imagination's not a good thing. And it kind of got buried because there was kind of a little bit of a shame thing that there's something wrong with having too much imagination. I literally still have friends that say, you look at the world through rose-colored glasses. You're not being realistic. And I imagine things. So anyways, it kind of got on hold. So then I went more traditional route. My husband's saying bye, honey. I started a home-based business with a business partner, and this was in the early 80s when home-based businesses really weren't around. So think, some of you guys might know this, but think no internet. Email was probably only AOL. My cell phone, people. Most of you are too young, but I had a cell phone that was in a box about this big that I carried on a strap around with me. Oh yeah. So while taking the boys to soccer or swim meets, I had this big clunky cell phone so I wouldn't miss a call. We didn't have smartphones. I couldn't text back. There was none of that, right? So my business partner actually had been my boss. I started off working part-time in nonprofit, and she was a nonprofit manager. So she decided to go out on her own, and it was cheaper to make me a partner than pay me. So, 50-50 of nothing is great. When you have to pay an employee, it's a little higher. So I became her partner. Her last name was Stewart and mine was Kress. So we named our company the Stewart Kress Company, very, very official. And we worked in a primarily male-dominated world. Some things have changed, some haven't. But through construction. Most of the nonprofits were trade organizations, actually, not charitable. And so a lot of men. So sometimes we took our husbands on our business trips. And so we're the Stewart Kress company, right? We would go in and immediately people would go to our husbands and say, oh, you're Stewart and Kress. And I don't know if any of you remember the show Remington Steele. That's what we felt like. It's like, yeah, no, it's us. But it was fun. You know, some of this has changed and some still hasn't. I can go on business meetings with my husband because it's in, some of my clients are in the remodeling field and my husband is as well. And so we'll go to national meetings and a lot of times they'll go to him first. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm the delegate, you know, but hey. So anyways, fast forward, and I'll fast forward to June 2019 because that's when Stephanie reached out to me. My business partner has long passed away, and I had changed my name on my company to Just Imagine because I wanted something that reflected me a little bit more, but I really didn't know what that meant at that time. So I trained as a dialogue facilitator because I believe that there's so much we need to learn to talk about, and it's not about communication. You know, there are communication coaches. Dialogue is between you and me, between us. It's sharing our perspectives. So I did a 2-year practicum in Contemplative Dialogue, and I developed a program called Compassionate Conversations, and then I do mindful leadership. So, you know, still pretty businessy. And then I thought, ooh, I'm going to slide something different in, and I became an angelic Reiki master. And I did play around doing sessions here at the house, but mostly for friends. And I'll speak a little bit more of this on the end, what I've been doing with it lately with the shelter in place. So my tagline is just imagine, and then conversation, compassion, and connection. And those are kind of the 3 components I've been kind of focusing on. So when Stephanie put out a call last June on Facebook, if anybody'd like to present an Empower Hour, I thought, oh, this will be fun. So she said, would you like to do, you know, down in Vacaville and then maybe Sacramento in June? And I said, sure. And so I did Vacaville, and it was fun. Amazing group of women. It was a lot of fun on self-compassion. And I thought, okay, I'll do the same thing in June. This will be great. Nice and easy. It's already done. And it's a new audience in person, right? Not thinking, you know, online, you can have the same people, right? And then the world changed. And I don't know about you, but when COVID-19 hit and we went into shelter in place, I did a complete spin. I had a really hard time focusing, working. You know, I would see things on Facebook about people saying, ooh, now's the time to clean out your closets and take that class you haven't taken. And I was laying on the couch going, blah, 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 blah. You know, I could barely make it through the day because my mind was in a spin and my emotions were in a spin. And I was in shock and confusion. And quite honestly, like we were talking about earlier, I had Zoom fatigue. All of a sudden, my main client is in San Francisco. And so I would only have to go down 1 time a month to meet with them. Well, now that it's Zoom, they're like, yeah, no, now you can be at all the meetings. So it's like, oh. And I thought, well, like Stephanie was saying about driving, I thought, well, at least I don't have to drive everywhere. This is great. I've actually been more tired from Zoom meetings than I ever was in the in-person meetings. One, I didn't learn how to give myself transition. You know, on Zoom, one call would end, I'd go get some more water, come back, and another might begin. And it was just, where at least when you're driving to and from a meeting, you can breathe, you can listen to music. Or with me, I go off into, you know, fa-fa land somewhere and enjoy myself. With here, and you guys are all looking at me, right? When you go to a meeting, sometimes you can zoom out. When you're in Zoom land or zone out in Zoom land, you can't. We're all looking at each other right in the face. So, you know, when she reminded me about this, I just thought, what am I going to talk about? I don't even know what to share because I don't even know who I am. And so the blessing of COVID-19 for me has been this period of great inner reflection, a time to really sort out what's important and what's not important. And the only way I was able to do that was to tap back into my imagination. Could I imagine what would my life be like if I had to do Zoom all the time? Or Reiki. Reiki is an in-person kind of thing. You can do distance Reiki in my practice. But I like being with the person. I like feeling their energy. I like that exchange and being there for them. So I thought, how can I do that? So I imagined, what would it be like if we can't go in person? Like, for instance, I don't know about you, but I haven't had a massage in almost 3 months. And it's like, you know, I kind of miss that. So what is the world like with that? So I just started picturing how things could be or not be. And one thing I started, and I'm happy to continue it if anybody's interested, is I started doing a Reiki session every morning at 8:30 for somebody. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Reiki, but all it is really is focused universal energy and love, which in my belief, everybody has access however they like. A Reiki practitioner, it's like, the example I use is when the rain falls, we all get wet, right? We get sprinkles on us. But a Reiki practitioner said, okay, I'm going to carry an urn and I'm going to pour it on you because I'm focusing. So I started holding sessions every morning at 8:30 for somebody that would want it. And I'd go in I have the massage table up and I would picture them on the table and I'd have a session. That wouldn't have happened if I didn't start imagining, how can I serve people without actually being with them? So this is kind of my COVID gift. I'm not charging for it. At some point I will probably do something, but for now, it's my way of giving back. But again, that was because I imagined it. So one of the things I also wanted to share is with imagination, because the word I use, Imagineering, right? Imagination can be used as a tool or a weapon. And we forget that. As a tool, I've been able to imagine, how to run a Reiki practice when you can't be together, or even run my business when we can't be together. Imagination as a weapon is some of that really icky self-talk, or imagining the worst case scenario, right? I could sit at home and think, oh my God, the zombies are going to be running down the street pretty soon, and we're going to be out of toilet paper, which we kind of were for a while. But, you can imagine all those really bad scenarios. But here's the little tip about it that I've learned. The body doesn't know which one is real or not real. It's both the same. So when you imagine the positive, your body reacts as if something positive is happening. If you imagine the negative, your body goes into that fight, flight, or freeze mode and sends all the little warriors in your body to fight it, right? But in both cases, neither have happened. So one of the things I'd like to do is, how can we switch that negative narrative, or the imagination as a weapon, into a tool so that the body feels good? Again, that falls into self-compassion, because isn't it all about feeling good? Now, please hear me, because I work in hospice as well. I'm a hospice volunteer, and one of my clients is the Sacramento Hospice Consortium. And death is really what I like to talk about, end of life and all that. So the reason I bring it up is, feel good doesn't mean we're not going to feel sad. We're not going to feel angry. All those emotions are very critical. But feeling good is, do we need to release some of this negative stuff within ourselves by our thoughts or what we're imagining? So just remembering. So for instance, here's an example. My husband and I want to retire in Greece. He's from Greece. And if you follow me on Facebook, I'm always posting stuff about how beautiful Greece is, because it is. So I imagine it. I imagine what life would be like living on an island and doing all the things we get to do on vacation. And I feel so good, warm and fuzzy, and I go about my day really happy. Conversely, I could think about, but I have to leave the kids and we're not going to have enough money, or all these different things. My body feels horrible, or I feel horrible. I get a little depressed and I think that dream is crushed. Again, nothing's happened. We haven't moved. I'm still just sitting in my house with thoughts. And so I choose to picture living in Greece. What I try not to do is to make it so defined that the universe can't fulfill my wish. So kind of leave it open-ended. But we can all do those little practices. We get to choose how we're going to feel. If we're going to feel good, or if we're going to feel bad. And that's where I feel that imagination is so critical, being able to learn to tap into that, because children do it naturally. Stephanie has a 4-year-old. I have a 4-year-old grandson, and I have a 9-year-old grandson. And listening to them talk is pure magic. My husband starts to butt in because he's real black and white. He's, and I'm like, no, leave them be. This is real. They all think I'm a little odd because Ima, they call me Ima, has a fairy garden in the backyard. The adults just go, oh, that's so cute, Brenda. You're just so cute. The kids are like, ooh, there's somebody living in that little house. And that's what I told my husband. I go out, and in all fairness, my husband put it together for me. So he might be real analytical, but he created the fairy village for me. But I go out, and when I'm really stressed during the day, I just sit and look at this little village, and I imagine little people living in their lives. Does that end world hunger, or does that stop the chaos that's going on around us? No, but it makes me feel good. And if I feel better and calmer, I can go out into the world with compassion and face some of this chaos a little bit better. So I just want to run you through a real quick exercise. Let's just do a little practice with this. We won't take long. But what I'd like you to do is just close your eyes for a minute and think of something that is causing you stress, whether it's COVID, the civil unrest that's going on. Just think about something that causes you some angst, and then pay attention to what happens in you when you think about it. Okay. So did you notice anything in your body? Did you notice either maybe an elevation in your heart rate or your pulse? Something like that. Now, so I'll take a deep breath. Because if you want to clear, like a reset, the best way is a deep breath, cleansing breath. I want you to picture that same scenario, but I want you to flip it. I want you to imagine the best outcome for it. So for instance, let's say it's COVID-19, you could imagine that there's a cure tomorrow. And don't overthink it. Let's don't go down the vax and anti-vax debate or anything like that. Let's just picture something positive. And then again, pay attention to how you feel. Okay, that was just a brief snippet. I love watching Carrie's face. I love watching the smile. We can do this with every situation that comes up in our life. We have total control, 100% control of what goes on up here. We do not have total control out in the world where right now, it's absolute chaos and has been for a long time. This country's been in a divide. And I'm going to be right up and honest with you. I've been married almost 40 years. My husband's a conservative. I am not. Thank God I did dialogue training, or we might not have made it as far as we have. But this divide has been going on for a long time. We can't control it, but we can control how our body reacts to it. And using our imagination and being crazy and free with it. If that means picturing yourself on a magic carpet, flying over the Mediterranean and watching the dolphins jump, do it. Doesn't hurt anybody, and it makes your body feel good because your body thinks you're there. That's the critical piece we need to remember. So if we can think it, we can create it in our body. So I'll just, in closing, I'll just share some of my imaginings. You know, I imagine a world where we can get together and acknowledge the fact that we have different perceptions of the world. We all have hidden biases that we don't know are there, and just to acknowledge that's a human condition and be aware of it. Where I imagine a world where the color of skin is just like a different outfit you're wearing. And we all know that. We can zip in and out of it, but underneath we're human beings. I imagine a day where we all realize that we're so much greater than we think we are, that we realize the power. That's why I love Empower Hour and what Stephanie and all of you are doing in these groups, because it's through each other that we learn to be empowered. There's only so much that I can do alone in my created world here. I now need to have connection with others to reflect back or hear me or share. That's why we're so interdependent in this world. Didn't COVID-19 show us that? How connected? Something that happened in China can change our entire world in this country so quickly. So we are so interconnected with what's going on with the civil unrest in this country does not impact us, no matter where we sit in this country. We have to be awake because we are interdependent. So I just imagine a world where we can embrace this and know we're different and ask questions and talk, and also a time where we can come back and get the hugs that one of you were talking about missing, so many hugs, where we can get caught up on some of the hugs. So I think that's about what I have for you, just talking about my world and imagination and some of the things I do and how I got here. And I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Brenda. You're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you. And for all the people that said stop by on Facebook Live, thank you so much for stopping by Empower Hour. And we're so happy that you joined us. And we'll see you next time, Empower Hour Facebook Live. So I'm going to go